Now you get to hear from several people other than me, and I think what we'll do is I'll just introduce these people, some of whom would like to come forward, and some of whom may just speak to you from down below. If they choose to speak to you from down below, I'll take the mic. First is Mr. Dent Miller. Okay.
Yeah, I christened this thing. Right, spade. I've got a few notes that I'm going to use here because I talk so fast. You'll have to hang on to every word or you'll miss something. Go back to 1961, James. Do you remember that? What's that, 49? You that old? You weren't in diapers when you came. Junior high. No, 1961, we came here together. I was at D. Thompson, and Jim was up in Virginia trying to go in the Army. Well, I remember, and Mr. Kutteh found it out and had the Army reject him. And brought him here, so we got a reject that we have trained. And just a few things, and I know we've got a lot of speakers, and I'm not going to belabor the point. There are a lot of things that I remember. And one of them, Jim, is that you cared about boys and girls. You know, I've worn out that statement because that's why schools were formed. They were formed for boys and girls. They weren't formed for teachers. They weren't formed for custodians. They weren't formed for school board members. They were formed for boys and girls. And sometimes we get so enthused, we get all tied up in rules and regulations and so forth, and we forget why schools were even founded to start with. I did make a note or two somewhere, James, about you had a hard job when you came here because you didn't have a band. Remember, you had to beat the bushes to get a drum and bugle corps. Alan, you remember that. And you talked about having a band, and Jim said, we don't have one. We'll have drum and bugle corps. We have little odd ladies out there with flags and so forth. It looked like we have something. That was the beginning. And one thing that never changed, and hopefully it has now, is he had to raise the money for his own program. That there was more Rex cleaners probably needed around here yet. I mean, after 40-some years, we sold everything. And Mr. Moody White, bless his heart, Statesville motor coach, he carried us, Jim, you know, the games and everywhere else, and didn't know where the money was coming from, and we didn't either. So, but have a lot of support, like these parents here, and I don't call names because you leave out someone, but I can't help but think it didn't take him long to get the community involved. If you remember Garner Wagner, who was mayor at that time, and Herman Dickinson, city manager, you remember, and Montgomery Steele was chairman of the school board then, and of course Mr. Kutteh, the superintendent. Shank Warwick was the Chamber of Commerce. These people got in behind it, as well as the parents, and they made Jim make a band. Because I remember when you represented the state, had the only band in the state that went somewhere. Raleigh was contacted and said, we have a band that represents North Carolina. Send us some money. It represented the city of Statesville, so send us some money. And but that is one of the hard parts of being a band director. Is in so many cases you have to raise the money for your job. In Calabrese, you usually, this is from my experience, Brother Rogers, Millsap, not yours. Most of the band people that I have been working with through the years were either promoters or musicians. And Jim, you had both. And that's hard to find. You had And in developing school support, he was kind of sly with that. I don't know where he learned his Southern politics, but he brought some, and maybe he learned them in West Virginia, Congo, I don't know. But we didn't have a program. If Mama Muse, of course, got on stage to present, Jim was always there backing. If you had a band concert, even at the end of the program, he'd say, if you people haven't heard the chorus, be sure and come out. If you haven't been to a ball game, come out. See, he had the whole faculty acting. Because if you ran late first period, when band was, he didn't want the teachers fussing at him, so he knew if he softened the butt, they'd let him have extra time if he needed it. I mean, didn't you, James? I know. Great disciplinarian, you know, one of the ways that he obtained discipline, and it was perfect, but he was from Pittsburgh. And he would politely tell the students, you either behave or I'll send home for my humble. You know, he belonged to some little organization that called it the Monkey. So he had discipline, and so we can remember those things. But I guess one of the things that you and I both remember was standing outside the band room one summer when you started beginning band. And the windows were open and so forth. We had the only air we had was conditioned by God. We didn't do it ourselves. And some lady, I don't remember who she was, the dear soul was here early to pick up her child. When Jim came down the steps, she said, oh, Mr. Calabrese, what a wonderful job you have. All you have to do is stand and listen to beautiful music all day long. A maiden moose call would have been more melodious than what he was. So anyway, I remember things like that, and I know you do too, but we do remember those things that are lasting, and you have established some relationships, son, that are great pay, because that's probably the greatest pay that you will get. I want to end with one thing here. If you didn't think I was going to end, but I am. And that is, in 1966, I believe that the theme of the annual was Our Town. I'd like to share with you what the kids had to say about Jim. In our town, we're fortunate to have what we feel is an outstanding faculty. From this faculty, the senior class of 1966 had the difficult task of choosing one person to honor. The person whom we have chosen is an outstanding person. He is a man who, in a few years, has been at ASS, has succeeded in making himself a well-known figure on campus. He conveys a contagious enthusiasm for life, and especially for music, which is almost impossible not to catch. He strives for perfection in everything which he undertakes, and in so doing he inspires students to strive to the top also. Our dedication goes to a man that has a combined sense of humor, originality, a genius for music, a dedication for his work, an understanding and warmth to obtain from most students. Largely due him, SHS has one of the most outstanding bands in the state. For all of this and for much more, the senior class of 1966 proudly dedicates the 1966 trail to Mr. James Calabrese. James, that's yours, son.
I thought Mr. Miller read it very well.